Hi, everybody. I am Raina Nielsen, host of Book Banter. And this evening, we will be talking with TQ Sims. They craft engaging stories that center queer characters in super normal situations. And I can't wait to talk to them more about that word, super normal. Their sci-fi series, The Lovers Universe, including Godspeed Lovers and Lovers in Arms, follows two men who fall in love while using their psychic powers to battle sentient storms. And yes, it's as amazing and adventurous and exciting as that sounds. There in 2022, TQ's short story "The Ritual" was a finalist at the Tennessee Williams and New Orleans Literary Festival, and their work has also appeared in Louisiana Words, Beyond Queer Words, and The Queer and Trans Guide to Storms. They reside here in New Orleans with their partner and an ever-growing number of cats. We'll have to discuss the number of cats as well. You can connect with them on Instagram at t.q.sims, and you totally should do that because their Instagram is pretty great. We are going to be discussing their newest book, Lovers in Arms. It's the second in the Lovers Universe trilogy. And without further ado, I'm going to welcome TQ to Book Banter.
Hi, Rada. Hi. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh my gosh, thanks for being here. Yeah. I am excited to talk to you about your newest book. And we did Book Banter a little while ago and talked about your first book. So I love that we've where it's like full circle. We're coming together for both.
Yeah, it was so much fun the first time that when you asked me again, I was like, hell yes. Yeah, I'm excited to.
Let's do it. So tell us, like, what's the elevator pitch for Lovers in Arms?
So Lovers in Arms is the continuation of Casey and Oscar's love story, and it's just going to get more complicated. They actually form a polycule, which has to hunt down these magical objects, which in the wrong hands could unravel reality, and maybe in Casey's hands, shatter the shadow, which is the big bad of the story. So
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. It's got a bit of a treasure hunt vibe. There's a little bit of more action adventure this time, but without sacrificing any of the heart or the spice. Definitely a love story, but it's an adventure and it's a wild ride.
It is. It's like adventure, sci-fi, love story.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like that you're capturing all of the genres.
Why not? I love them all, so like, why not just put them all in one book?
Like do it. But there are parts in this book that are true, just like adventure novel. Like, I feel like you could strip away it's in the sci-fi universe, but like you could even like pull that away and be like, okay, we're just doing an adventure right now.
Yeah. There's definitely some stuff that's inspired by Goonies and Indiana Jones and, Raiders of the Lost Ark and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like all these things that, were exciting stories for me when I was a kid. And I just wanted to write something that, was inspired by that and was more adult and still lots of fun, but also still reflecting things that are going on in our world.
Well, okay, and so that brings me to a good question. Like, what inspired you? So you mentioned the ones that you just mentioned are very like adventure-y, but what other were there other books or movies, or what really inspired this particular, like, you to sit down and like start writing this story?
Honestly, it's very much inspired by real life stuff. It's love that I've received from my partner and from my friends and from my community. And I feel like those are the stories that really drive this. I was a yoga teacher for quite a long time, and I still teach a lot of that same stuff in private settings. I just don't call it yoga anymore because I'm not teaching that philosophy. I'm just teaching the movement part of it. So I call it conscious movement. But I've been engaging in these mindfulness practices for over a decade. And a lot of that sort of gets seeped in. There's a lot of things from Yoga Sutras. There's a lot of things from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's other stuff from like nonfiction that gets woven in there. So yeah,
Okay,
that's what inspires me for this particular project.
I see that. So Tibetan Book of the Dead. Yeah. Okay, I see that. Now that you said it out loud, I'm like, okay, I can see inspiration. When you're writing, well, when one is writing a sci-fi or fantasy novel, there's a lot of places, there's a lot of names, there's a lot of things like the big bad guys and all of this, where you have names that seemingly are just like made up. And I wonder that every time I'm reading sci-fi fantasy, especially, where like I'm like, okay, this is just something they've put a bunch of letters together, and sometimes it's really difficult for me to pronounce, but like, I don't know how you say this out loud. It's fine. I'm just reading it in my head. It's no big deal. But I heard you say that that's not really what you do. You don't just pull these out of thin air. So like, where did they come from?
That's just not what I wanted to do for this particular story and this series. Like, maybe I'll do that for another story, and you'll have to get the audiobook to hear what the pronunciation actually is. But for this particular story, where we are basically world building on top of the world that we live in, I could just use, what's already there. Like, a big part of Lovers in Arms happens around Mare Crisium on the moon, which translates to the Sea of Despair, which that alone is just like such a poetic title. And it was so good for what these characters are going through. Like they're sort of desperate to find these magical objects and, find a bit of security and safety in the world. And that just felt like the most appropriate setting. So when I knew that I was going to set this story on the moon, I looked at a map of the moon and I looked at what titles were already there and what they meant. And when I came across that, I just thought it was perfect. And I had a friend once say that, you don't have, he read the first book and he said, you don't have to make up all these names for sci-fi. And I thought, like, I didn't. Like, a lot of the names it just comes from another culture. It's maybe not as familiar to English speaking people. There are things that I pull from my yoga studies or Eastern philosophy. And if you come across a name that is a little bit unusual when you're reading my stuff, you can look up the meaning of that word and it will tell you something about that character or that place. There's a very intentional reason that I chose that name.
So I love that. Now that I know, okay. And so basically I'm just Googling every word. I'm not pretending like I know what it is. Like every word, every proper name that you have in this book, I'm just like Googling it because they're like, everyone's an Easter egg, right?
Yeah, it's like another layer of fun.
Exactly. Everyone should do this now. That is what I want from every book because I love like insider, Easter egg type stuff. If you know, you know. So like, everyone, if you've read the first one, go back, Google all the words, all the things.
Yeah, there is one name that I made up, and that's Zinwara. I completely made that one up, but everybody else's name, it's inspired from something in our world.
Okay, so Linda's asking what inspired you to write sci-fi romance. So, why sci-fi romance?
I love sci-fi and I wanted to write a sexy story. It's that simple. you know, this is the genre that I really enjoy reading, sci-fi slash fantasy. It doesn't have to be like hard sci-fi where it's just science and physics and things like that. I love a little bit of magic woven in there. And I just wanted to write a sexy story. That's it.
There you go. I mean, that works. Tell me, when did
Yeah.
you start? You have mentioned that you knew this was going to be a trilogy from the beginning.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What's the timeline of like when you knew you wanted to sit down and write this to like, I guess, where we are now, which spoiler alert, I guess you're just starting to write the third one, correct?
Yes. Couple days after the election, I took my feelings and sat down. I had notes from many, many years, and I started writing the third book.
I mean, that's like, amazing, but I would have been so afraid that too many of my feelings would be in that. Like, maybe is the big project the thing that I want to sit down and write? Because I just want a crayon and I just want to like big angry letters all over some paper to start.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I had been gathering notes on book 3 for several years, and I was already getting prepared to start that specific project. And for me, it just felt like if I don't start this project, like with these feelings, like it felt like, I don't know, that felt like that wasn't the thing for me to do. Like, I get what you're saying, like, you know, maybe what I've written is like all gonna get cut, you know, it's just like the first draft. So that's the stage I'm at with the third book. But I've been planning this book, this trilogy, for 4 years now. I started writing during the pandemic, during lockdown. And for me, it was a way of, you know, using my time wisely by creating art, but also just like, it was a little bit of escapism at first. And then when I realized like I actually have something that I want to share with people, it wasn't so much about escapism anymore. And it really felt like it was a big enough story to tell in 3 parts. So from the beginning, I knew it was going to be a trilogy. And from the beginning, like as I'm writing the first novel, I'm taking notes, like all my ideas. I'm like, oh, that goes in book 2, and that goes in book 3. And then when I sit down to write book 2 or book 3, I go through all these notes, and it's so much. But I start organizing. I'm like, okay, first act, second act, third act, like dropping things in there. And then when I'm ready to write, I can just go. I can just kind of fly.
Yeah. Do you do all that on your computer, or do you like physically? Like, I have a friend who does a similar process when she writes, and she literally have Post-it notes. Like, she color codes and she writes that. Like, so it Post-its and those index cards. So like when she'll take a picture of like when she's about to start a project, and like her whole like floor is covered in these index cards. She's taken these notes and written these different things and placed it out. So how do you do that? Like, actually do that?
I love that. I have seen other authors do that, and I think it's beautiful, and it's really interesting to like have things laid out. For me, it helps organize things like digitally because I can move things around easier, and also, you know, I've got my phone with me when I'm out. Like I'm not going to have like my stack of Post-its with me when I'm out. So if I think up something cool when I'm at the bookshop or at the coffee shop, I can just like go on my phone and like switch up my notes app. But I will say that typically for the peak scene of the book, when there are so many things that are like coming together, I will lay things out with like note cards, and I'll start to shuffle things around to see like, oh, this needs to happen before this happens. And that can't happen until like after, you know. So I do a little bit of both, but it's primarily digital.
So it's like when in the moment where it could get complicated, you can actually like lay it out and see where everything is.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have to do that too, because I'm like a very visual and like tactile person. I have a legal pad on my desk all the time. Like I'm constantly writing notes and typing them, but like I feel like when I have a pencil or a pen in hand, it sticks more than when I type.
There's something different about it. Yeah. What's your sign?
Oh, it's Sagittarius.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah. So mine is Capricorn, and I feel like just having things digital where I can move things around quickly feels very efficient to me, and like pleases my Capricorn sun sign, if we want to take it there.
Yeah. I'm about like, I feel like about 90% of everything I read about Sagittarius is like spot on. I don't want it to be because like, and that's very Sagittarius too, is like, they don't know me. Like, and I know it. And just by doing that, I'm like, damn it. That's exactly what they want me to do. It's so true. but it is every time. I'm like, it's no big deal. I don't really believe in it. It's just for fun. And I'll look something up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's fun, but like,
they're right. So yeah, I don't have everything memorized or anything like that. Like I don't, but I am very aware that I'm a Sagittarius, and it is what it is.
There you go.
It is. The book. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about the cover a little bit, because you designed the cover, but you didn't like actually design the cover. Tell me.
So the cover, I came up with the concept and I sketched it out. I can draw okay. I used to be able to draw really well. Now I can draw okay. And I kind of just like sketched it out, passed it along to a friend who did the first cover. And I said, like, I want this. And then he made it into this amazing, beautiful artwork that you see here. That was Joel Luna. And then I had the concept for the typography, which was done by my fiance, Fritz Westenberger. He tweaked my ideas a little bit, and he knew to do that without asking me, because I probably would have pushed back if he had asked me first. But once he did it and he like laid everything out like this, it just felt so right, because like I said before, there are, trying to get the book in the frame here, there are a couple of love triangles in the story that come together to form this great little polycule. And there's a geometrical object that's one of the relics that the characters are trying to find. So that little diamond in there says a lot. And it also looks a lot like an hourglass. And these characters are, they're on a race against time. They've got people like after them trying to get the magical objects before they do. So when he laid out the typography that way, I just felt like it was just like the perfect thing. It was so aligned.
So he's the one that did the hourglass triangles?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Good job. And you're totally right. Like, if someone had tried to explain that to me, I'd be like, I don't know. But if you see it, right, then it's like, obviously, that's perfect. Yeah. No. Well, good job. Good job, Fritz.
Yeah, good job, Fritz.
So your timeline for the books and then getting the books out, like writing them and getting them out, is pretty tight compared to like what typical publishing is for writing and then getting a book out.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about self-publishing, is that, it's a lot of work, but you do your story, you work with your editor, you get the cover done, and then like you upload it and it's ready to go. Like with traditional publishing, you could be waiting years to get that story out there, which I think is a really interesting way to do a series or a trilogy, because like, you know, if you're waiting for a couple of years before the story's out there, you don't even know if it's going to resonate with people. So are you like, how do you spend that time waiting? Do you work on the next series or something else? Or yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't it's like 18 months is a typical turnaround from turning it in. That's not even including writing it, from like turning it in to it hitting the shelf so a reader can purchase it is 18 months. And I'm just like, what was I even doing 18 months ago? And then you have to like talk about it in depth, you know? So there's a lot, there's pros and cons to self-publishing for sure, but definitely one of the pros is exactly what you're saying. Like you have the control to, like, you finish it and then you can have it on shelves in, I don't know, weeks. Like
literally. Printing is so fast now. So yeah, it's a quick process.
It
and
is.
you know, I think because I'm so organized with my notes, I can sort of estimate how long it's going to actually take me to turn those notes into a narrative. So the first book took me about 4 months to write the first draft. I think the second book took me a little bit longer because there was a pause. There's a particular scene in the book that is really intense. There's sort of like a freak accident that happens. And you know what I'm talking about because you've read the book. And I don't want to give any of the spoilers, but like, I kept thinking, like, do I really want to do this with this character? Like, and how is that going to affect everyone else in the story? And I literally got hung up on that for a couple of months. And then I decided, like, actually it feels right. And I think there's something to polish here and make really great. So so the second one took me about 6 months. Who knows how long the third one will take me? Hopefully about 6 months or less. And then
well, if it's 6 months, yeah. How long? So you work with an editor, which, by the way, everyone, if you're going to self-publish, the one thing you want to spend your money on is an editor. Who's a good editor. Yeah. I tell everyone who comes into the bookstore and goes, I want to write a book. We're like, cool. You can scrimp on some other places, but do not scrimp on your editor because you don't think you need one, but you do.
Yeah, they see so much that you maybe don't see. I know mine does. She's amazing. Her name is Colette Bennett. She's wonderful. She does really great line edits, but she will also occasionally offer some structural edits just to kind of judge different scenes. And she's usually spot on with her recommendations. So I'm really grateful for her and our process that we have. You know, we work together pretty quickly, and that's important. So you have to be able. Sorry. Yeah, it helps to get the book out. You know, so that, like, you know, with a series, I want people to stay engaged with it until they've followed through the entire story. Yeah. And I mean, I know that you know this too, because I know a lot of the books that you read, but like when you start a series, you really want to finish it. Like holding on when a book hasn't come out yet and it's like the third or fourth, whatever in the series, and you're like, okay, like you have to, you have no choice, but it's like, it's painful. I mean, if you're in the series and I mean, so I love that you're getting them out like about one a year, right? Since you put up. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I think the third one will be out in January of 2026. So it's a little more than a year, but it's about a year. So it's about a year. It's close enough. Yeah, I feel like that's good. I do
mean, it's
know
great.
people.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know people who won't start a series until all of the books have been published. Until the author has finished writing them and gotten them out there, they're like, I'm not going to start this series because if it's really good and I have to wait for a book, I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to like hopefully make those readers happy as well, so like they don't have to wait too long.
Yes, there are definitely people who do that. I couldn't do that because I completely forget that I even want to read the series. By the,
Yeah.
if it takes 3 years or 6 years or whatever, I would just be like, I don't even remember what that's called. I have to start it. Once I start it, it's in my head. Then it'll like pop back into my head and go, oh yeah, that,
Yeah.
I wonder if the next book has come out. So I have to start them. I To Love and Lost, like that's what I was like. I want the experience now, and I'll wait for however long it takes.
Yeah, right on.
Well, I think we've made it to the end of our conversation, or to the end of Book Banter. I'm going to put in the link in the comments. Y'all, this will take you directly to where you can purchase Lovers in Arms. You could also go from there and get Godspeed Lovers. And you can get this book wherever books are sold. It is available in nationwide distributors, so you can get it at your local indie bookstore. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. Yeah. You can click the link, and that'll take you to bookshop.org, which is a great place to purchase your books online as well.
Yeah, if you don't see it on the shelf at the bookstore, just ask for it. They can order it.
Ask for it. They can order it. They can have it in just a few days, and then you can have it in your sweet little hands, and it will be great.
Yeah.
TQ, thank you so much for joining me for Book Banter again.
Thank you, Lorena. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
And thanks all of you for watching. And have a great night, y'all.